Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing great today. We certainly haven't been getting a whole lot of Paul McCartney these days, haven't we? Yeah, and nothing is wrong with that. Nothing is wrong with a whole lot of Paul McCartney. And we've been getting a whole lot of Paul in the form of some new music, some wonderful TV appearances, and a couple of documentaries over the past year or so. And who knows what's next? Who knows what Paul has in store for us next? Because it is Paul McCartney. He's that workaholic. He's that overachiever. And just like, when they were with the Beatles, they never stood in one place for very long. They always wanted to do something different because they got bored. Paul said, we're not the Beatles anymore. We're going to be Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. So they did that, and they said they got bored with that. So, hey, we're not going to do that again. Let's get back to basics. Let's be the Beatles again. So they made the White Album like the Beatles, and they said, okay, well, we've done that. Let's do something different. Let's rehearse and record 14 brand new songs, and let's make a movie about it. Let's put on a show. Let's put on a TV show. And they did all that, and once again, Paul's just not happy with that again. So let's do Abbey Road. Let's make a real album. Let's get George Martin here. So they did that, but once again, let's do something different. Let's all put on these live shows, these little gigs all around the world or whatever. And we all know that didn't happen. And Paul was forced to reinvent himself once again and became Paul McCartney, the solo artist, Paul McCartney and Wings. And then after 1980, he had to be Paul McCartney, the solo artist again. So continuing to grow, evolve, and change and reinvent himself. And then he became, with George and Ringo, they became the Threedles there in the 90s. And they got all nostalgic, etc. And Paul came up with Flaming Pie and Run Devil Run. And then into the 2000s and the new millennia, he reinvented himself again. And he also had to deal with other things that were changing, like his voice. So for, I don't know, is it like the past 10, 15 years or so that's been happening to Paul pretty clearly, that he's had to adapt and come up with new ways to use this instrument. And I think he came close with the album Egypt Station with the song I Don't Know. I think that song kind of pointed into the direction of where he is right now with the Boys of Dungeon Lane, where he kind of embraced like his voice and the angst and everything and the bare bones sound of that, and him really like being artistic. Okay, I think that song is very arty. Okay, and it's a very straightforward, emotional song. And Paul's vocals, his old man voice adds so much honesty to the song. We believe him. It's very powerful. And when I first heard Paul's song, The Days We Left Behind, I love that song. It made me think of Johnny Cash's version of the Nine Inch Nails song, Hurt. Now, they're not the same thing. They're absolutely not the same thing. But they're both legendary artists who have to embrace, their age. They're seasoned artists. But that's the operative word there. They're both artists. And they're both legends. And Johnny Cash, he worked with Rick Rubin to come up with this song, Hurt. And Johnny Cash lent a lot of emotional weight and depth and history to that song to just turn it into something. And it touched a lot of people because, it's a universal message right there, like the hurt and the pain and the regrets. It's all very heavy, but it was made even weightier by Johnny Cash and his experience and his lived experience. And that's what I think is so fantastic about, Paul McCartney and the Boys of Dungeon Lane and The Days We Left Behind is because Paul McCartney is singing it. And this is Paul's voice where he is right now. And that is, you have to do a lot of things. You have to have experience. You have to have a history to be able to sing that. Because these are universal truths that Paul is singing about, that Paul is communicating to us, that everybody can touch and can relate to. And it doesn't matter so much about the voice. What matters is the mood and the man singing it, like the artistry of it. Because whenever we see Paul McCartney, at least whenever I see Paul McCartney, Paul McCartney carries that aura with him. Paul carries around like his past, his history, like with the growing up in the Beatles and the Ed Sullivan Show and Sgt. Pepper and Get Back and The Rooftop and all that and Wings and Linda and all that and the anthology and everything and all beyond. Okay, everything. And up to today. So whenever we see Paul, we can picture Paul kind of on the same mic with John. singing and writing those songs, or he's messing around with Ringo, just hugging each other, dancing, showing off together. There's like a couple of kids when they're together, or maybe even arguing with George, or hitchhiking with George, or being buddies with George, and writing Freeze a Bird together, or writing Now and Then, all those, and Real Love. Right? That's what I picture anyway. All that history, all that weight, everything that they've been through. When I look at Paul McCartney on the screen, whenever I see him or whenever I hear him singing, like, this is what I'm feeling, that history, that emotional weight and that depth that Paul has now, that you just don't get that. Like, as a 20-year-old kid, you earn that. Paul's voice, the way it is now, it's very powerful. And we're connecting with it. That's what Paul brings with this album. And that's the mastery that we're feeling. At least I'm feeling it. That's the artistry here. Like, he's leaning into that. Who knows where he came up with that? Probably like during Get Back, etc. He got all nostalgic, etc. He started writing songs. And this is maybe the past few years, he's been writing a bunch of songs and collecting them. So again, let's put it together an album. This kind of feels good. I'm in that mode. I'm in that mode of just kind of letting go of stuff. Just like when they did Anthology, they had to look back on everything and kind of like come up against some hard truths about their own past, and make amends again and have a better understanding amongst themselves so that they could move on. So I feel like this is what happened, with Paul. So Paul was able to, like I said, with Anthology, he was able to look back fondly and everything and feel good about that, okay, and move forward from that. This was Paul say, okay, I saw Get Back. Okay, I can look back. That's all fine now. Put all that to bed. It's all fine now. It's all good. It just unlocked him. I think all that stuff just unlocks the artistry, unlocks that well, and says, okay, let's look at it. This is all good now. So Paul's able to look back on that and share everything with us. And I think this is Paul just basically like going through a phase, just like, all the other phases and the reincarnations, reinventing himself. Paul just continued to change and evolve and grow over the years. And now it's all kind of coming full circle here with this song. It's like Paul McCartney. Paul's the only one who could sing that song, The Days We Left Behind. Paul's the only one, like the Boys of Dungeon Lane. That's all him. It's very personal. And that's a very John thing to do. John Lennon. John would always talk about himself, write about himself, be very personal. So now this is where Paul is now. And home to us, Paul and Ringo, they're the only ones who could be singing that song. Okay, it's just them. Because both of them carry, that history and the memories, and it means so much when they sing it. Just like The Days We Left Behind means so much when we hear Paul sing it. And just like, with the Johnny Cash situation, means so much. All that history that he had. And now Paul, all his history and everything that he has. I wonder if he's going to do like a music video, just like Johnny Cash did a music video. Can you imagine that? Or a movie or something like that, or a documentary. I don't know. Like a bunch of music videos of all of Paul's new songs. That would be fantastic. I don't know. It could happen. A girl can wish, a girl could hope. But like I said, I think this is just Paul, going through a phase, going through a nostalgic phase, being very artistic, getting back to basics, showing us who he really is, just taking us all, back home with him and sitting us all down, telling us all about it, a very straightforward song. And I'm looking forward to the album. And also, you know what? I don't think Paul's going to be done. I think Paul is going to do whatever it is he's doing here and be something else entirely, like down the road. I think this is just a phase for Paul. And just like everything that Paul's doing here now, I think really Paul is onto something here. I think whatever Paul does next is going to be pretty damn good. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really and truly appreciate it. And until next time, peace and love one another. Take care.
Hello? Is this mic on?
What? Just blow me in something. No, I think it's just okay. Just shout it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ready?